The atmosphere at the table is really nice. Yeah, it's been really nice chatty table.
It's totally amazing. It's definitely the best hotel I've ever been to.
You are not only in for the games, but every night there are these fun side activities, and it's always nice to have these activities.
I've been to similar parties some days ago, some years ago, but this one is very high level.
Feel at home, sitting at the tables. The games are quite soft, to be honest, and it's nice people.
Hello guys, and welcome back for some 2-5 No Limit Hold'em from Cash Game Festival Bucharest. Day 2 of the action, and we do have the NetBet Open running alongside a plethora of cash games that are seeping out across the room. You can see at least 5 or 6 tables running. Not bad for a Thursday night. So we've got some 2-5 here, and we're joined by Christian in seat 8, Christian Georgi, who is famous for his 7-2 off bluff in the final table of the EPT Monte Carlo. He'd managed to get himself into that via a free roll, finds himself with 9 left with the likes of Ola Shemyon, Patrick Antonius, who else was on there, David Peters, and manages to bluff a high-stakes Lithuanian guy called Jazonis off of the nut flush draw and a gut shot on the turn with just 7-2 for one of the most ludicrous hands in the history of the EPT. There you can see on the right-hand side of your screen with the PokerStars hat on backwards, still living in the moment, still loving life, following that massive score of 230k. And fires a bet of 30 in there. It gets called quite quickly by Connor, who has top pair. 10 on the turn. Shouldn't change an awful lot. Christian will potentially fire for a large sizing, some of his like 9-10, Jack-10, Jack-9 type hands to try and fold out better overcards on the flop. Looks like he's going to give it up though, even with the Ace of Spades blocker, which could give him some triple barreling opportunities had the spade come on the river. Connor really shouldn't be flatting from the cutoff here with too much 3x. So the only hand that he should be worried about that he would be basically drawing dead against is pocket 8s. And Connor going for a protection bet on the turn, just looking to fold out some ace highs, some king queens type hands. Doesn't have any spades in his hand, thinks he's going to have the best of it the majority of the time, and that one works quite nicely and picks himself up that first pot of 147 euros.
raise 20. 3 to pass. 3 pass. 4 pass. 5 pass.
Nedelku with the Jack 9 suited, opening it up in under the gun to 4x. Christian there floating and turning his hand into a bluff on the river. Unsuccessful, as Nedelku looks him up there with the Jack 9. All the information we've got on him is that he's in seat 1 and he's in for 500. So we do give the questionnaires to the guys playing the TV table. Some don't choose to write anything. Some choose to give them us their life story, which is a lot more easier for us to work with. And as we're talking about that man in seat 8 there with the PokerStars hat, Christian Giorgi, 28-year-old, favourite hand is 7-2, of course, from Monte Carlo. Favourite player, Patrick Antonius, and he's been on the TV table before. He's in for 1,000, so I'll be interested to see just how crazy he's going to be going and whether he's calmed down a little bit after that incredible run. So, Laterra, who predominantly plays some 2-2 Omaha, 5-5 Omaha, especially Sviten. Interesting to see him in the mix. And as we cut to him, he has the 8-2 offsuit in the cutoff. Wonder if he's going to be firing in a cheeky 4-bet to get things going here. Nope, just lets it go. And as you see from the last stream, a couple of English guys in the mix as well. Connor Oldroyd, who won about 800 euros on the last stream. And Sam Clark, who does do a really good and is an up-and-coming UK poker vlogger. Thanks very much for the tip, Lenny Dirk. Nastius 90 is his online name. So total live earnings of 430,000, which puts him 20th in the Romanian all-time money list there in the small blind, Nedelku. Be an interesting player to watch for the next couple of hours. So thank you for all of you guys tuning in, and thank you very much for the information on that. Looks like his biggest score was 43,000, which was in the 10K Party Poker Millions in 2018. Looks like he's been on the scene for quite a while. Been playing since 2012, was his first accredited cash on Hendon Mob. And some great results there with cashes of $430,000 over the last 6 years. Good effort. Obviously got some online winnings to go with that as well, I'd imagine. Oh wow, profit of $1 million across his career on PokerStars starting in 2012. And some huge scores in there, 119k in the W Coupe, 105k in the same series of the W Coupe, playing the 5k high roller. Impressive stuff there.
1 call.
Yeah, that's an incredible PokerStars graph. Nastiest 90 for you guys watching.
2 pass.
Thank you very much, Leonid Erk. Imagine you're a friend or supporter or fan or whatever. So Latera opening up with the 8s. And everyone's got a pretty playable hand here. Sam defending the big blind with the Jack-9. All looks pretty standard. A couple of those hands could have been used as a candidate for 3-betting, but going to be taking a flop 5 ways here.
Raise 90. 3 pass.
Christian electing to stab when checked to in the Delku, popping it up there, backdoor flush draw, and bottom pair. Knows his hand's not going to be good enough of the time, needs some protection, and can apply some pressure in position on later streets. A very interesting start, as we did get that information to see him using a play like that, which is at the 2-5 level, not particularly common. So it'd be interesting to watch how he reacts to some of the players on the feature table.
Table 14 is waiting for players to start 1-2 Texas Hold'em, minimum buy-in €100.
Miko, glad to see you tuning in, pal. Yeah, very well, very well. Are you going to the Battle of Malta at all, or what's going on with you in poker at the moment? I'm very well, thank you. Solitaire popping it up, another playable hand for him, ace-10 suited. Gonna get a call from Delku in the hijack with the 10-9. Izzet comes along, defending the big blind, which is a very wide peel multi-way. Not going to perform particularly well. An offsuit ace, as I say that, flops. Trip stop kicker, of course. And one check to here, Delku has some backdoor stuff going on. He can turn an 8, a 9. Sorry, an 8, a 7, or a heart. Decides to stab €25. Connor comes along with top pair. And it's a dream spot for Is It here, who flops trips with his ace-6. And with no flush draws there or any immediately obvious bluffs that Is It could have in the big blind, I think Connor will just have to let this one go, especially with a poor kicker with his 8. No backdoor draws either. And Is It's just going to take that one down. It's a bit of a weird spot for him there, because even if he overcalls or raises, anything he does looks super strong defending the big blind. He's going to have a lot more 6x than any of his opponents. Zoltan picking up King Kong, popping it up to 20 in the hijack. Sam gets out the way. Connor looks interested here on the button. See what he's working with. A Queen 8 suited. Certainly a hand that's not good enough to call, but could be worked into a 3-betting range if he has some information on his opponent. It is very early. Let's go for it. It's a super large size here as well, 75. I think a little bit unnecessary considering that he is only 100 big blinds deep with Zoltan. But it does make it easier in situations like this when you get 4-bet. You're just doing so poorly against that range that you can easily fold. Connor picking up jacks after the Queen 8. Straight back into the mix with an open to 15. Ah, good stuff, Miko. Yeah, it's a great tournament festival. That's for sure. Wish I could go myself, but I've been traveling so much around Europe. I just need a couple of weeks off before I'm going to head over for the Asian Poker Tour in Vietnam, followed by the World Poker Tour in Cambodia. Really looking forward to that. And Connor and Sam there sharing a nice bottle of red, easing themselves into what looks to be a mixed bag in this 2-5 game. Thanks, mate. Really looking forward to it. Be good to have a few weeks off as well. What events are you going over there to play? Is it all of them or? So Sam pops it up under the gun 2, standard open here. Is It comes along in seat 5 with Queen 9 suited and Christian from the big blind. Pretty standard defend. Sam has got an easy c-bet on the flop here. He's going to have all of the strongest ace-x in his range. Ace Queen, Ace King, Ace Jack, Ace 10. Some of his opponents aren't likely to have those. Christian is going to have to call one here with the 9. Just because of the fact that this is a board that Sam will be continuing at a very high frequency. And Let's see what the turn brings. It is the 8 of diamonds. Not doing an awful lot for Sam's hand, electing to check. And is it now when check to deciding that even though his opponent can definitely check some from ace-x, some of his ace-10, ace-jack type hands, that he wants to bet and just try and take the pot down now rather than face any river cards that might not be good for his hand. Oh, well done. Where did you win that €1,600 package?
Too fast.
9-5, not going to be playable. And the guys from England still having a good time. Connor with the King 6 suited. I think it's a little bit too wide, but does elect to open. I'd probably be opening this hand from the hijack. I think +2 is a little bit on the ambitious side. Does get it round to the big blind. And just takes down the €7. It's not a bad result. Ah, Bobby James. Good friend of mine out there with another friend, Nick Kennedy, at the moment, sharing a room and hopefully getting the lot in the Battle of Malta. But it's not the only decent tournament going on at the moment. We do have the Net Bet Open alongside the Cash Game Festival here this week. €330, 100k guaranteed. And a whole host of side events as well, from PLO to the High Roller that started yesterday and is finishing today. Folds round to Georgie on the button, who's going to pop it up with the Jack 2, deciding to take the matter into his own hands. Yanni 86, how you doing? Yeah, I saw those pictures on his Instagram he posted. I think he lost a bet with Jamie Nixon or something. Looked pretty funny. And Zoltan does come along for the call, defending a 4x from the button with the Jack 10 offsuit. Won't be going anywhere on this board. Certainly a board that the button is going to be betting with their entire range. But it looks like he's just led out for 25, so interesting way of playing it there. I'm guessing he might have been doing that just to fold to a raise and just try and gain some information from his opponent's hand. I'm not really too sure. Definitely not the standard line. Take care of your horse, please, Christian. I will do my best. He's in there with the Jack 2 off on the button so far, so certainly in here to mix it up. And pops it up to 15, which is the 3x sizing. Gets a quick 3-bet there from Nedelku on the button, the suited king. A hand that would probably be too weak to call, so we can work into our 3-bet bluffing range. Does play quite well in position as well with a decent suit. A lot of good things that can come from the suited kings. And Sam here with king queen off on the button, who's seen a lot of aggression from Nedelcu so far. Maybe weighing up his options and deciding whether to 4-bet or not with a hand that has good blockers to the top of both of his opponent's ranges. And Christian, out of position, is going to come along for a full 4x sizing with the Jack-9 off. Quickly checks it over. Nedelcu flops middle pair. Wants to try and bet now to set up some aggression on later streets against hands like 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s that have him beat currently but probably won't be able to take the heat. And Christian's got other ideas. No diamond, no straight draw, just a backdoor straight draw. And he's going to decide to pop it up to 130. And let's see how good Nedelcu's instincts are here versus a very non-standard line, taking the Jack-9 into a check raise on the flop. Does decide to come along. Is ahead of obviously all of the flush draws that are out there. Does also beat some ace-5s. 3 of diamonds. No help to either player. And could slow down the action. But Christian here, considering he's taken such a low equity spot on the flop, may be inclined to follow through here, but there's only a 1 stack to pot ratio here versus Nedelcu, who has 392 with 387 out there. Does he down bet the turn? A lot of the range of hands that he's representing on the flop have improved to a flush. Ace-5 as well got there and gets it through. So some heart there shown from Christian, who not going to show this one, just quietly mucking it and picking up that pot of about 400 euros. Yanni's having a heart attack in the chat. Latera and Adrian folding. Comes back to our man Christian, who's given us a lot of fun so far and is going to continue with this one for sure. Queen Jack popping it up. Gets a snap call from Nedelcu in the cutoff with the 7-6 suited. Certainly a hand that you can go either way with. Folding is out of the question, but 3-betting sometimes and calling the majority of the time I think is the preferred play. And the flop is all hearts, ace-10, 8. And Christian, really the only one with decent part of it, although Connor does improve to 2-pair now. Nedelcu has the bottom end of the straight draw. Christian has a double gut shot. Can certainly check some aces here on the flop with it being a monotone board, so I like the fact that he is using the delayed c-bet approach. I think Connor will have to come along for at least one here. Needs to be right 1 in 4 times, but also does need to realize that equity as well, so you do have to factor in that your opponent might bluff the river as well. So he's going to check it over now, and Christian left with absolutely nothing on the river, potentially trying to pick a size that could fold out like the king of hearts. Just does check it back, and I think a wise decision. Christian letting it go. Jeffrey, good to have you in here. Looking forward to some of your insight. We've got some 2-5. We've got a well-established online mid-stakes crusher in seat 1. Delcu. And we've also got Christian Georgi in seat 8, who's famous for a 7-2 off bluff on the final table of the EPT Monte Carlo, where he was in for a free roll and ended up cashing for $230,000.
One pass, two pass, three pass, 4 call, 5 check, good there.
Yeah, and he's the man behind it. An incredible hand. So it looks like a limp pot with Christian limping the small pair first to act.
8-15, 4 pass.
Bets full pot, gets a call out of Is It with the pocket 5s. Turn goes check check, and the river. I'm not sure what the purpose of this bet is. Is he trying to fold out? Trying to get called by king high, trying to fold out 8s. I'm all at sea with this one. If any of you have any reasoning in the chat as to what this bet achieves, do let me know. Although he is up against a worse hand in this respect, and it might work. So gets shown the bad news. Targeting 4s, 3s, and 2s, I guess. Very thin. That's what he put you on, apparently. Wow. Limp under the gun, small pocket pair, I guess. Can't have 6s. And would have heard from 7s, so very thin there on the river. Incredible. Thank you for tuning in, Poker Room Bucharest, reminding us that we are doing a daily raffle here at the Poker Room Bucharest during the Cash Game Festival week. Every hour that you play, you will receive a ticket for the raffle tomorrow, and one lucky winner will receive a €1,500 package for a Cash Game Festival stop of their choice. The €1,500 package includes accommodation in a 4-star minimum hotel with a VIP hospitality package, which includes days out. So today they went to play pool and bowling with some free beers and food. There's going to be a dinner. There's going to be a nightclub night out as well. Yeah, that's all above board, Jeffrey. No problem. So Adrian popping it up to 3x. And Latera defending with the Jack 8. Adrian probably going for a medium size here. Does go for 25. Yeah, it doesn't take much. There's a lot of lurkers in the cash game. It's generally friends and family of the people that are watching that have no interest in talking about the hands, but just want to watch their loved ones play on the feature table. And then occasionally we get some back and forth from me, you, Ubzi. It's good to have Huevos Rancheros on earlier on. The guy traveling in Mexico, Tim, giving us some insight. Christian popping it up to the full 5x, and Connor won't be having any of that. Looks like he's going to be coming in for a 3-bet. He's seen enough from Christian to think that he's not just going to be having very nutted hands from this position, and Laterra in there with 9s. Not really much he can do apart from either shove or fold, and I think it would be a bit of an overplay just to shove it in, praying that he gets a flip or can get a fold out of a hand like ace queen or ace jack, or a suited connector from Connor. Then he has to deal with Christian's strong raise under the gun as well. So Christian does peel the 3-bet with queen 9 off. Yeah, me too, Jeffrey. That was a really interesting conversation we had there earlier in that PLO stream. And so it's ace queen versus queen 9, and both players flop a piece. Christian has his, what he perceives to be an overcard with the gut shot. A 10 would give him the nut straight, and Connor has flopped 2 overcards with the nut flush draw. He's in there for the fun. 25x call with the queen 9. Does flop some equity now. Let's see if he goes ham again. Did it versus seat 1 earlier. Yeah, those don't look like... Oh, they do look like calling chips. Okay, so it's going to be a bet and a call on to the turn card. 4 of hearts. Connor still with the best hand and a commanding favourite. Just looking to dodge an offsuit 10. May want to elect to bet again to try and get hands like 9s or 10s to fold. Or put them under pressure at least. And the 7 of diamonds will be a nice sight for him. Now realizing that he is going to have the best hand the vast majority of the time. And Christian gets to the river with queen high, and now has to decide whether he wants to make a stand at this pot, having check called the flop. It's probably the stone worst hand that he's going to have if he does choose to play queen 9 off this way pre-flop. And looks like he is going to go for a bet, just to try and get some stabs like ace-x on the flop, or a hand like king-queen to fold. And Connor just probably thinking about Vegas and the fucking Mirage, but might be a little bit wary. I'm not too good at these deep no-limit hold'em river spots here, whether he can go for the raise. What's he going to get called by? King 10 of diamonds, king 9 of diamonds, potentially. I mean, if his opponent's range is as wide as queen 9 off, which you won't know, he can certainly get called by some hands like jack X, jack 10, king jack, ace jack, queen jack. And that's the bad news there for Christian. Connor targeting those jack X and worse flushes. Not giving his opponent credit for 8s and 7s and quads, which would probably be the only hands that he loses to. And Christian reluctantly lets it go, only with the queen high. Took a stab at it and wasn't. Yeah, give us some insight into his story. We love to hear the poker stories. So he was in for the free roll in the EPT, obviously. He came 5th in that for 230k. That's about as much as I know, because that's about as much as it's publicly available. If you want to shed some more light on that, we'd be happy to hear it. Nice pot there for Connor, who's back on track after a bad start to the week. So Zoltan popping it up with the 10s here, +1. Peter Latera flatting with 7s on the button. Seems pretty standard so far. And Christian has an easy defend here with the 9s. Don't really see there being much reason to 3-bet versus the +1 player. It looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. Not here to mess around is our Hungarian fella in seat 8. Popping it back up to 45. It's very small 3-bet sizing. And I think that leaves Zoltan with the only option but to call with the 10s. And Latera's getting a good price to set mine for his 7 as well. So pair versus pair here as we go to a flop with about 140 euros in there. And no one flopping any of it. So Christian actually might win this hand with his 9s if he does get the 10s with the diamond to fold sandwiched in between the player behind him as well. Bets almost full pot as well, so pretty tough spot here for Zoltan. Does have to fold, and Latera folds as well, so getting it done. Bounces back from the last pot. And he says you can see one, shows the 9. So his opponent just praying that he had the ace-9 suited for the squeeze pre-flop, but interesting. Yeah, I mean, the 2-5s have taken a resurgence over the Cash Game Festival recently. We've had some really good games. Whereas I think 3 stops ago and before that, it was usually tended to be very nitty local regs. But, you know, what with the Battle of Malta going on and some other stuff as well online, it does seem that these games are a lot more beatable than they were in previous stops. So Latera is going to be popping it up here with the 3s. Going to 15, I imagine. Yep. And Zoltan finds ace king in the big blind. Going to be a very easy 3-bet. Makes it way too small though, only 40 to go by the looks of things. And once again gives Mr. Laterra, he's at a good price to set mine on a few previous hands. Once again, in position, very easy call. Oh, and that's a gut-wrencher of a flop for Zoltan, who decides to check it over, thinking he's got the board absolutely locked. Laterra's flop bottom set, and I think Zoltan is going to struggle not to get stacked here. Sorry, not stacked, as Laterra has 340 behind. He's going to go for a raise. So 3-bets a 15 open to 40 out of position. Checks the flop, raises. And Laterra, on such a dry board, has to think that he's got the hand pretty much locked up the majority of the time. Yeah, I agree, Jeffrey. The value really wasn't there in the previous 2 5s. And Zoltan now, his line's all over the place in this hand so far. 3-bets tiny, checks the flop, checks raises, checks the turn, check calls, and now it's the king on the river, so Laterra is getting the stack, of course. And I wonder what Zoltan does now. Does he go for the donk jam, or does he check once again? Goes for the lead of 150. Laterra calls, and he's going to see the bad news is Zoltan in the next couple of seconds. Ace king playing bottom set on the flop. Unfortunate situation there, but I don't think there's anyone on the table getting away from that one. And Zoltan with a fresh reload there of about 500 euros. Yeah, the play was a bit suspect to say the least, but the stack's worth lying in. Maybe the meta has changed. I don't think so. Not as much as it deviating here. So looks like we've got some 5-way action here. Playable hands all round. Christian's call from the cutoff looks the most suspect of the lot, and Zoltan's call as well from the small blind, both on the looser side. And we're going to see a flop of ace king 2, which doesn't really hit anyone particularly hard apart from Connor, who flops an 8-high flush draw. Has opened under the gun, so is in quite a nice spot to... Ooh, decides not to because he has 5 ways, I guess. But does have the overwhelming range advantage on this board. Is the only player that's going to have ace king. Is the only player that's going to have aces or kings. Really should be firing a bet there. 8-handed table, Jeffrey. So when check to, Christian has bet 50 here, and Connor knows how wide Christian's been playing so far. Wouldn't be a bad spot to try and attempt to represent that you were trapping on the flop with all of those hands that you can have that your opponent isn't going to have, but does decide to check call out of position with an 8 high flush draw. Definitely on the wider side of things. Where would you set the marker, Jeffrey? Like 9-8 off 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited? I think the problem is live. It's even worse because you're just going to get loads more people cold calling with those slightly better suited hands that should be 3-bet or folding behind you. So I think you should actually be tighter with your suited connectors from early position in an 8-handed table. Connor's not really turned much here. Yeah, I'd agree with that one as well. People just don't fold. No, you can't fold 10-9. People just don't fold suited aces in single raised pots though, from like almost any position in live poker. So that does dampen your chances of winning a big pot with a hand like 8-7 or 9-8 suited. And Connor's going to go for the raise here. He knows his opponent has absolutely nothing the majority of the time. Can't have a hand like ace-king, can't have aces, can't have kings. And just gives it the old click back on the turn, representing a slow played monster hand. And gets it through. Christian deciding to take the bait when checked to, and Connor coming in with a nice line there, redeeming himself for what I thought was a pretty standard bet if you are on the flop, if you are going to open the 8-7 suited under the gun. Yeah, that's another thing. People just don't fold pairs either, do they, Jeffrey? It's somewhat of a leak that I think carries across a lot of the live population. Adrian in the seat 7, open it up with the ace-jack suited. Nadelku is going to come in with the call for the 7-4 suited. Interesting. Off of the short stack there. Probably wouldn't be V-pipping it myself. Yeah, I think you're going to be winning more than those guys in the long run, Jeffrey, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Queen 6-6. Tricky board here for Adrian, who just has ace high and not really an awful lot of backdoor potential, but just does get that down with a small bet. Maybe some frustration there from Nadelka, you could see, who huffing a sigh of, you know, not connecting with that flop at all. And the V-pips you can see here, starting at 18%, going all the way up to 54 for Laterra, Christian, Connor, and Nadelku as well, playing a decent amount of pots. So folds to Nadelku in the cutoff, very standard open with the Queen 9 suited. Looks like Sam's going to be 3-betting it to 50 with 10-4 suited. Applying some pressure. looking for a spot to get a little bit frisky versus the Romanian online legend. And Nedelcu comes along with the Queen 9 suited. So 3 SPR going to the flop here. Sam flops about as good as it gets for the 10-4 suited. Bottom pair and a flush draw. And might be wanting to think of a sizing that he could commit Nedelcu's stack on the turn at 3 SPR, or electing to go small and go for the 3 street play. Gets a call from middle pair, not going anywhere to 1 bet, of course, out of position. Deuce of diamonds on the turn. And the problem is with the small bet now is that you're going to get a lot of awkward cards like this, and you're going to have like a 1.6 SPR or so. But decides just to ship it in. On the double flush board, definitely could be shoving with a hand like Ace King, King Queen for value, for protection. Does have a hell of a lot of bluffs though as well. A hand like Ace 5 of diamonds that might have stabbed the flop small, now picking up a lot of equity. There are, 5-6 of diamonds is in there. Cutoff versus, button versus cutoff. Definitely would be stabbing the flop as well. It's definitely a board where you are going to continue with a lot of your range for that small sizing. So when you do jam the turn here, you can have a lot of bluffs. Nedelcu has no spades in his hand either, and could be up against a hand like Queen 10, Jack 10, Queen Jack of spades or diamonds. All of those hands are in there, and he's doing actually pretty well with that Queen blocker against some of those hands. So it's an interesting spot facing such a large overbet. I'm guessing Sam's reasoning is to try and cap his opponent's range on the flop. And apply the pressure on the turn. He knows he's never going to get a king to fold. He might be trying to get a hand like a 9x. A nut flush draw. Eey. Nedelcu ends up paying it off. And a gulp from Sam as he's asking how many times. I think ripping it's nice, but I think we want to bet a little bit larger, so we set up a more natural shove on the turn, because we end up polarizing ourselves so much where we have very little value. Oh, and there's the first one for Sam. Looking for a 4-10 or spade on the second, and that one goes to Nedelcu, so they're going to chop it up. Nedelcu's sort of thinking, oh god, I've been had there. Yeah, of course. But I don't think that you're given enough credit for as much value as the plethora of bluffs that are out there on the double flush board. Yes, Nedelcu is a player called, found him online earlier on Sharkscope, Narcissus 90. 1 million profit in dollars on PokerStars since 2012. At 70 ABI. I don't know. I don't know. I think the 3 SPR does better for a 2 street bomb rather than 3 street. In the grand scheme of things. No. Neither would I. Okay, so Connor popping it up to 15, folded round to the button. That's a first for this game so far. Latera has the backdoor flush draw, with his ace high. Could be the best hand. Don't think he's going to be folding to 1-bet. Does indeed flick in the call. Seven on the turn. Certainly a better card for Laterra. Ooh, and a spicy 10-ball on the river risky for Mr. Oldroyd. And Laterra deciding that he might turn his hand into a bluff, targeting some better ace highs. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much what he's targeting. And Connor's thinking, wow, if this guy's got a 7, I'm getting the absolute lot here. Vegas and the fucking Mirage. So I think that that's exactly what we want to target now. Our line looks pretty suspect because we're repping a very thin range of hands for value when we do raise the river here. So we can overbet. Something to 1.5x pot raise. Somewhere, is that around 200? Yeah, it goes to 150. I think that's a little bit small if we are targeting 7x here and 7x only. I think we're sort of somewhere in the middle here. I don't think we're ever going to see someone fold a 7 here, so we would want to charge them a little bit extra, something along the lines of 200. This sort of middling sizing, you're trying to maybe get value from a queen as well. I think that we just want to go completely polar here. It's a weird spot. We have very few perceived bluffs and very few perceived value hands as well. Yeah, just absolutely massive, basically. And Laterra here, maybe he's trying to sniff something out, thinking that Connor's got a hand like 6-5 or 6-8. And just completely blasting into him on the river. Does find the call and get shown the goods. Laterra thinking that's pretty much the only hand I think you can have, sir. Raising, what, in Connor's spot? I think we wouldn't want to use the hearts. I think we'd want to have something like one of the backdoor flush draw stabs on the flop in there. Something that blocks a lot of your opponent's 7x as well. So anything with a 6 and 8, a 5 or a 9. Yeah, very weird spot. Those don't come across, we don't come across those very often, but Connor in this instance with his 150 sizing does get paid off. And an interesting spot, I think. Laterra thinking, what the hell is he representing here? Wouldn't raise aces or kings for value on the river because you're oh, that's a mighty big gulp of the red wine there. Absolutely knocking it back. Don't know if you guys saw that, Mr. Oldroyd in the middle of the picture there, just knocking back half a glass of red wine. And usually I'd like to think that people drink red wine to come across as a little bit more sophisticated, maybe. Man about town. Not for Con. He's in it for one reason and for one reason only, to get on the absolute sauce. So the Terra popping up to 15 on the button, and looks like he's going to get this one through. Not going to be continuing with the 10-3 off. Had an entertaining start to proceedings from Christian here, but potentially after losing half his stack, thinking I'm going to try and wait for a better spot to continue in the next hand with. Yeah, not sure. Maybe he, likes his short stack game and just wants to continue playing like that. I think, based on what we've seen from the rest of the table, he's got some really good action here around him. Should be fully stacked for sure. I mean, he's the only online pro at the table. There are a couple of guys that play live cash here for a living, Sam being one of them. Connor as well has been traveling around and playing a lot of poker. I think his main focus is betting.
Yes.
2.3x 3-bet from the big blind was a different guy. That was seat 2 with the ace king. I think. Oh, no. That was Zoltan, I think his name is. So faults for Christian on the button here with the 8-5. And Nadelku with 2s. Calls, and whoa, Zoltan picks up the pocket rockets. Probably going to be pumping it up to about 20. And of course, Nadelku fishing for that 2. Hoping to see some improvement on the flop. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Connor is really good at the live dynamics and adjusting to some banana players that you don't see online type stuff. And Nadelku looks like he's going to come along for a peel on the flop. Is beating all of the overcard type hands that his opponent might stab. Ace, Jack plus, King, Queen, things like that. Ooh, so close yet so far to improving on the turn. I was hoping for that 2 of diamonds. Gets the 3. Which still isn't doing much for his hand. If Zoltan can find a second barrel here, I'm pretty sure that that's going to be the end of it for Nadelku.
55.
And how much has he bet? 55 into 90. And gets it through. Shows him the absolute goods. Nadelku giving a knowing smile as if to say, yep, that's how I've been running so far this session. Stefano, 36. Is that Stefano from the stream earlier? It might have been Stefan we had on the stream. Either way, welcome to the chat and thanks for joining. La Terra popping it up with the Queen 9 of clubs. And Christian does like his Queen 9 from earlier, popping it up from under the gun with the Queen 9. Seems to be one of his favourite hands. Here's the spot Nedelku's been waiting for. Finds the Ace-Queen suited. Easy 3-bet. Versus two players that are very high on terms of the VPIPs. And Zoltan's got an interesting spot as well. But does elect to just let it go. Could be some argument for a low frequency 4-bet there. It is quite a nice spot for Nedelku on the button to squeeze, but it is, you know, a quarter of his stack, so that changes things as well. Getting gone. Rinse them all up the Brexit. Cheers for coming back, Billy. Pleasure to have you in the chat once again. And your boy's doing very well. He's playing an absolute blinder so far. He won about 800 euros on the previous stream, and he's got to be up about 300 or 400 so far in this one as well. So it's a good day for Canvey Island. So Jack 4-4, and this is an interesting board because everyone's completely whiffed, and it's going to be the first person to stab wins. Flop checks round, 5 of clubs on the turn, and that's a card the Terra might be interested in. At a 2 SPR, picking up a Queen High flush draw. Does elect to check. Christian loves pouncing on weakness from what we've seen so far. Will bet absolutely anything if a couple of guys check to him. And yeah, it looks like he's going to have a stab. And Nedelku, I'm sure, will be have picked up on this before and will be a little bit suspicious as to what Christian's holding here. The problem is he does have a player behind La Terra who, to be fair, didn't c-bet the flop and shows no interest on the turn. However, I think La Terra is going to have to play in some form, of course, with the Queen High flush draw, weighing up his opponent. And based on what we've seen from Christian so far, it would be a lovely spot to turn a hand into a check jam, I think, just because of how relentlessly aggressive he has been facing these kind of multi-way passive lines. Mr. Jingles 101. Sam has been doing okay. He had a couple of interesting hands that didn't go his way earlier on. Managed to get out of jail. Went for a cheeky little bluff. Button versus cutoff, and managed to run it twice and chop up that. I think it was about an 800 euro pot. But hasn't had too many hands to get involved with, which has been the story of the day for Sam. Did see him playing some Omaha earlier on. Didn't fare too well, just because he was pretty card dead and the spots he were getting weren't favourable. And Christian finally gets one through. Let's show it for the stream. Go on. Folds La Terra off the chop. First person to stab Connor from Barkin, he will know about that. There'll be Romanians lining up outside, I'm sure. So 7-4 under the gun, obviously not going to be playing, and we're going to fold round to La Terra. He's had a lot of playable hands and does decide to widen it up to the King 4 suited. Christian with the 8-7 suited, going to come along for the ride. Nedelku once again finds himself a nice pre-flop spot with the jacks. And is going to 3-bet. Makes it 60 to go. That siphons out all of the stragglers in behind in the blinds, and it comes back to Laterra, who is going to come in for the call, which means I think we'll be seeing a continue from Christian as well. Hasn't shied away from the pre-flop action so far. And let's pray for Nedelku that he can actually win a pot, because it's been pretty brutal for him. And this is going to be a decent flop for Christian, who flops an open-ender. Laterra now turns a gut shot, so he's got some equity at least. And the turn checks to Nedelku, who's confident that none of his opponents are going to be balancing a double check line with a queen or a better hand than jacks, so he's going to shove it in for some protection. Billy's saying he's got 5 of them cheering him on. Let's go, clean it up. Cheers, boys. Shout out to Barking and Canvey Island Massive. Hope you're having a good one. Having a few tinnies or something, I'm sure. And Christian looks like he's going to peel it off with just the naked open-ender. Do not try this at home, kids. 16% equity, looking for a 9 or a 4 only. That would be devastating for Nedelku based on the run that he's had so far during this 2-hour stream. King on the river. Looks like a disaster of a card for Nedelku, who thinks he's probably drawing semi-dead, but shows the jacks and, you know, they're good to go. Billy, that's totally right, I am. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys, having an absolute barnstormer. I've heard good things. So Laterra once again popping it up with the King Jack of clubs. Had so many playable hands, but just hasn't been able to connect with too many boards so far. Nedelku, trying to play as many pots as possible, comes in with the 5-4 suited, and Sam has a lovely spot to 3-bet on the button. I love that, the little snap look away. Oh no, yep, no, I'm just coming in for the 3-bet, guys, don't mind me. And Laterra once again is just getting pissed off with this, isn't he? He's getting people 3-betting him every single hand, but nevertheless he is going to come along, and Nedelku manages to find himself with 13 big blinds in there, pre-flop with 5-4 suited. Great flop for Sam, that's exactly what he was looking for, and Laterra's got a little bit of a piece as well. King Jack, an overcard to the King with a 10 for the nut straight. Does have those backdoor clubs lingering in the mix as well, and Sam will be betting the flop, trying to get some value from worse queens, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, any hand with a 9 in it. Oh, that's a crushing blow for Sam Clark, as Mr. Laterra there in seat 6 improving to the nut straight. But a very astute check back there from Sam, who now has been put in a bit of a spot. Loses to tens and king jack, but having checked back the turn. And Latera there, I mean, I don't mean to laugh at Sam's behalf, but just the fact that the way he showed that was brutal. Nothing he could do there, like the flop bet, like the turn check. Try and potentially get a hand on the river to put the money in. And like king queen, maybe queen jack, might think that they have the best hand and shovel it in. It's a tough one. It's such a small SPR by the time you get to that stage as well. It really leaves you no choice when you are very high up in your range. What on the table? I'm a big fan of Connor's haircut, I have to say. Looking rather dashing. So it's a frustrating few days there for Sam, who's not been able to get much going and basically gets a clean 4 out of there where, you know, if it was any other turn card, he's winning the pot. Apart from the king, of course. King or a 10, he's looking to fade. Here's a top-notch trim indeed. So Zoltan popping it up with to 50. What? Why so much? Have they got the straddles on, or what's going on here? That's a bit more like it. 15 from Zoltan in suit 2. Sam with jack 6. Needs a swig of wine after the run he's been having.
6 check, 2, 25. 4 call. 6 pass, 2 players.
And we have lost the whole card information, but I think someone had king 6, and it might have been Connor Oldroyd there in seat 4, who is up against 2 pair from his opponent, Zoltan. He's going to have another little stab at it. There we go, king 6. So the Barking boys will be happy, as Connor has the absolute best of it on that king 10 board. Versus Zoltan's 2 pair, who's essentially drawing dead. And now Connor deciding to announce his hand and raise it up on the turn. Gets a snap call from from 3 pair, I guess you could call it. And that is one of the worst cards that could come actually for Connor, as backdoor hearts do get there, but based on the opponent he's up against, don't ever see us folding. I remember one of the funniest chants I've heard was a Scottish chant aimed at England fans saying, "We're going to deep fry your Brexit." One of the favourites I've heard.
4 check.
Looks like the river's gone check, and Connor very happy to see that his king is good there. Doesn't have a kicker to go with it, otherwise he might have gone for some thin value on the river, but when he did get snap called there, it might have been a little bit wary of the fact that he could have been up against the goods. And once again, Connor getting it done, almost up to a stack of 2,000 euros, in for 1,000, 1,800 earlier on. Big winner on the day so far here at the Cash Game Festival.
One pass. 40.
Easy win for the boys.
Raise 4. 3 pass. 4 pass. 5 pass. 6 4. 7 pass.
So Zoltan back in the mix with the queens. 3-betting a very small sizing there to 30. And +2 versus under the gun. Your opponent is going to have a strong range any case, so it's a good reason to size up if anything. Oh, and Laterra. Cheeky Mr. Laterra finding the ace-king there in the small blind. Fresh off the double up against an unfortunate Sam Clark. Does have top pair, top kicker here as Zoltan sizes down with the pre-flop 3-bet, and now when faced with a pretty bad board for his hand and 2 callers, sizes up. So not too sure what's going on there. 6 on the turn is good news for Laterra. No improvement to his opponent. And I think Zoltan would be do quite well to just check back here and try and see if he can improve on the river. It is the 9, so Laterra is going to be pretty happy with his hand here. Does want to try and get some value now from basically any ace that his opponent might have. It was a weird small 3-bet sizing pre-flop, so it's often tough to know what people are doing that with. But once your opponent does check back the turn, you can be pretty satisfied that you're going to have the best hand the majority of the time. Looking for some value versus kings, queens, and a worse ace is going to be the way to go. And we're going to sweat with Zoltan here on the river, who's just mulling it over. And does well to get away there. Oh, no, he paid it. Oh, wow. Mucks the hand, but the dealer ends up showing his cards, and just another salt in the wound for for Zoltan there, who gets the rub down of not only losing the pot, but having to meekly get shown what he had.
Need him to go home. Nah? Oh, okay. Small, big, straddle 10. Sit 1, straddle 10. Sit 2, pass. 3, pass. 4, pass. 5, raise 15. No, 15, 20 is small. Yeah, because it's
20, you put 20.
why is not possible 15?
Because it's 15.
It's 15. It's 10 plus 5 is 15. It's the minimum raise, yes, it's called.
Okay,
15,
15.
very good.
Is it popping it up to 15 in the cutoff? Adrian flatting from the small blind with 7s. Or I thought it was. Looks like a 3-bet here. And Christian now has an interesting spot with the king-queen suited, facing a late position open, a late position 3-bet. Deciding whether to call or 4-bet. And then Nedelko in the small straddle is not going to be doing anything, and looks like he's had enough. He's off. So that's enough for him. And Christian does indeed flop best with the top pair. Not the best board in terms of the board that he could flop top pair with.
Rezervat către cine? 6, 7 check, 8 bet, 110. Five pass.
Okay. And Christian betting 110 on the flop after the pre-flop 3-better checked. Thinking his hand is going to be good, maybe wanting to protect against some flush draws, some straight draws. There's a hell of a lot of hands out there that could have him in jail by the turn card, so does go for that stab of 110 and takes it down. We'll be happy to see that he does indeed win that pot. Maybe picking up some momentum as we draw towards the end of the 2-hour stream here.
New dealer, good luck.
So Sam under the gun, looking down at ace-3 off. Not going to be playing that one, unfortunately. And Connor with the king-5 suited, continuing his aggressive stance. Certainly someone that when they do play looks to take over the table and allow his presence to be known, which is a good way of going about things, especially in a cash game dynamic. If you scare people into not bluffing as much against you, or feeling a little bit uneasy when they are in pots against you, you're doing something well, and that's certainly an image that he does have at the table. And I'm guessing that he got that haircut to help alleviate that as well. Connor bets 5 on the flop, goes very small, just a 6th pot. Wants to get some continues from just naked diamonds. Wants some worse hands to continue. If he does go larger, he will only be called by better hands. And Zoltan now leads the turn. So a bit of an interesting hand here so far, developing. No one improving on the river. And I think Connor's going to think he's just got the best of it here. Does get shown the bad news. And it's only a €72 pot. He is doing rather well. Up 900. Thank you.
Is here.
Please,
Okay.
thanks. The old droid knows no bounds, and certainly knows his way around a game of cards as well. Straight back in the mixer here. continuing to apply some pressure on the table. 10-7 suited. Gets a call from Is It there with the Queen 10 of diamonds. Laterra's not going to be doing anything with this hand, unless he's had a bit too much wine and feels like coming in for a bluff 3-bet. Adrian calls. Christian's out there with the Jack 5. Couple more trashy hands fold, and we're round to Sam Clark in the big blind, who doesn't even have a hand he wants to put the extra 10 in. Jack 6. And, you know, to be fair to Sam, it is easy to lose your discipline and start to play too many hands if you're on a bit of a downswing, or you just can't seem to connect with the board or win a hand. And he's stuck in there well, and he's, apart from, you know, one spot he took with the 10-4 suited earlier, which obviously is a questionable 3-bet, but I'm guessing he thought that his opponent was opening too wide and wanted to punish that. He has played very well. Yeah, absolutely, Billy, and he won a decent amount in the Omaha earlier as well. Looks like he's got himself another bottle of wine and some fish and chips to top things off. Used to think he was a magician at school. Lets that one go, and Is It bets when check 2 on the flop. Got some backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw possibilities there. Don't mind it whatsoever. As you can see there, the chip counts. Connor the big winner at the table. Sam hasn't had the best of runs. And here he is. How you doing, mate?
Not bad. Connor's just collecting his trophy and stuff, and then he's going to be coming over, I think.
Nice. So, how long ago did the game finish in live time?
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes. So, it looks like we've got about 15 minutes to go, gents.
We got, Booze Brogy saying I want fish and chips.
Yep.
If that's based on what our meals are there, that is actually chicken with cornflakes on it.
Oh,
that is no joke.
Chicken with cornflakes?
Yeah, it was supposed to be chicken schnitzel.
Right.
But literally, chicken breast.
Yeah.
Cornflakes on it.
No way.
Yeah, it was actually alright.
Yeah?
I didn't mind it. I was like wolfing it down, look. It wasn't bad.
Sounds like something out of the Addams Family that they've knocked
bad,
up.
To be honest.
That's what a chicken schnitzel is. I thought it was breaded.
Yeah, I thought it was just like breaded.
Yeah. The pork one is with. Oh, right. There we learn something new every day. Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
I'm a schnitzel fish.
Yeah.
That's me just angrily steaming away on my phone about how the King Jack gets there.
Yeah, that was sick because you've got such a low SBR on the turn. That
yeah, I was just shoving. In my head, as the turn's being dealt in my head, I say anything that's not a 10 or an 8, I'm shoving.
Yeah.
Oh, a 10. Cool.
Sweet. Check this one back. Hopefully, try and pick off.
And then he thinks his, I don't know, his King Queen or his Queen Jack's good on the river.
Yeah, shoves it in and
can't really fold.
No, I agree.
Absolutely disastrous.
Yeah, that's exactly was my interpretation of it in the commentary that you'll see later.
So on the turn when I check back, the one thing is he says, as soon as I check back, I've got you now.
Oh really?
Yeah,
oh, so that
is
could
a little bit more towards the strong side than just like Queen Jack or something, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I can find a fold, but I don't know. I think I'm definitely overfolding a fold there, but you can do it as an exploit, I guess.
Yeah.
Connor, you want to jump in?
The absolute lot, haven't you?
No,
Pesky
smell.
smell.
Go get your trophy, you absolute wanker.
Done it all in.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, you'll see.
No, you haven't. I'm looking at your stack there.
Go and get your trophy, you absolute shaft.
Jeffrey says, "Wait, this is the 10-4 suited guy, right?" He didn't. He's not a fan.
That was very GTO. How dare you? No, yeah, that was. I'd seen that guy getting a little bit loosey goosey from later position.
Yeah, he was definitely.
Decided to get after it and then just found the dream flop. To be honest.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, yeah, he's not hitting on the 3-bet, but I want to know why you picked Phil into 3-bet. Because I'd just seen him get out of line a lot from late position. I think Queen 9 suited was like one of his better opens from what I'd been getting reported back. And
also, he'd been he was on a shorter stack, so you can apply a lot of pressure to it to him in that spot as well. He was like 70 big blinds or something.
Like, I think that hand is maybe the absolute worst thing he calls with.
Yeah.
And even then, I think he's going to fold there sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have enough equity even when he calls, so...
Yeah. And Connor finding the ace-king and the small blind, popping it up to 65. Is it here? Who's been a bit random. Not too sure whether he's going to call. Does elect to let it go. Versus a +1 open and a small blind 3-bet. I like it. Adrian, not really getting the best of prices, but does have that position all importantly. And they are almost 200 big blinds deep, so he will take a flop with the 5-4. And that's a hell of a flop for some action for you guys at home. Ace, King, 6, 2 clubs. Connor flopping top 2, and we've got Adrian in there with a backdoor straight draw and a 5-high flush draw. What sort of size are you thinking here, Sam? He's gone, I think, 45 or 50.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Definitely don't want to be folding out hands like King X, weak Ace X.
King, Jack of clubs and stuff like that. You get
Yep.
call them.
Yeah. 8 on the turn, giving Adrian some additional outs with the 7 now as well. Connor can't be too worried about that card. Still going to have the majority of Adrian's range completely crushed. Probably is going to get a fold from 8s on the flop as well, and 6s may have raised, so...
I like a check raise here, I think.
You like a check raise?
Yeah, if it's the kind of opponent that's going to stab, but which one was Adrian?
Adrian, it's seat 7, it seemed to be relatively tight.
Okay.
I
just bet again,
I just think your opponent can't really stab much because it's such a board that favours you either way, and he does have a lot of things to deny equity against. Hands like Queen Jack, Queen 10, Jack 10 that might have picked up a backdoor flush draw or have a front door flush draw.
This guy's not going to stab with there, I don't think.
Yeah. And now he does go for the overbet. Looking to really max the pressure on a hand like Ace Queen, a hand like Ace Jack, potentially King X of clubs. You could have the Jack 10, Queen Jack, Queen 10 in there with a front door or back door flush draw. Adrian here wondering, just trying to work out if he does have the price to continue, if there's any chance that Connor gives up on the river and he can maybe gain some additional equity by having some bluffs on the river as well, or if he just needs the 7 or the club.
I think the bet line here is very strong. There's not going to be any fold equity for bluffs, I don't think.
Yeah, well, on the river.
Yeah, I think...
You can't jam it in now, it'd be suicide.
And Connor just checks the river, I think he's always check calling.
Yeah, and it looks like he has peeled it in. So, huge pot here. Our man from Barking, Connor, up against Adrian, and it's the 9, offsuit 9, and that completes absolutely nothing. So as Connor here, I might be tempted to check, because everything's absolutely bricked. I don't think you're going to get any more money out of a hand like Ace Queen or Ace Jack. They're not calling the all-in for 200 big blinds each. But you might be thinking, well, maybe he's got a hand like Ace 9 suited, King 9 suited. They might stack off if I shove.
Yeah, that's true.
However, I think the majority of Adrian's range here is going to have whiffed that turn card. And he does get the fold. So Connor there picking up another pot and moving his profits up to 1.3k for the session. Going to be the winner of the TV table so far, and having a little cheeky bit of back and forth with the dealer as well. Just another day in the life.
All joy living. Yes, Con, from Billy in the chat. Someone questioning in the chat why I picked the online reg to 3-bet him. In position, I think pretty much because he's the online reg, he's going to have a more reasonable defend range when he's calling 3-bets out of position. I think I'm going to have more fold equity there than against a lot of the other players at the table. And like George says, he's got a short stack depth. Can kind of go after that, but didn't exactly work out in this scenario.
Sit 8 call, sit 1 pass, sit 3 pass.
At a day, I'm like 1,500, 1,600, maybe more. King.
So the King Kongers there from Christian is just flattered the straddle under the gun, hoping for some action. And he's a bit of a wild card, isn't he? C8 Christian there. Yeah, sometimes you gotta give it to the regs. You can't just let them think they can run you over.
Especially in spots where they can be quite wide. I can't remember exactly the situation, but I believe
it's button versus hijack, I think, or button versus cutoff.
Yeah, had there been a limp beforehand, there's someone who might have been targeting. There was
That's what happened. Yeah.
It wasn't just the positions. There was some other reason I decided to go for it. I think it was was it Georgie maybe was in the hand, and I felt like he'd been targeting Georgie maybe.
Yeah, Georgie.
Something like that. There was some other reason I decided to go for it.
Georgie limped.
Yeah, I think that might be why.
So what's going on here? Is it deciding to turn his 5 into a bluff on the river?
Probably not going to get through the top set of kings here. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
What's Georgia doing here? Georgie decides to raise. Christian Georgie.
Yeah, Christian.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of him as Georgie from from what I've seen.
It's purely targeting worst sets here.
Do you think at this point he's absolutely just posturing, or is he at least considering the 3-bet all-in?
Yeah, I think people in these spots just tend to waste time.
Yeah, I think just...
I've seen it on TV.
Yeah, it's not worked out. Put him in the bin, son.
Oh.
Surely not. I can't actually remember this hand.
Why is he stroking the chips like that? George, a special carbonara for you for love for today comment. Okay, so thank you very much.
Poker in Bucharest.
I had like 4 orders today where I'm trying to get a water and it's just like people just walking around getting everything else apart from me. Just sat here slaving my bollocks off.
Igonzo in the chat. Absolutely no sympathy for the tanking with the 5-2 there. Fold your trash hand, look like a fool.
I think he makes a good point.
It's reasonable. Didn't we get in trouble for kicking off in Bratislava about a guy making a rec player turn his hand over?
He came over to the booth after the geezer.
Yeah.
And like tried to have it out with me. 3 hands to go, by the way, guys.
Yeah, I think we made a very reasonable point, to be honest there, George. I think if a rec player clearly doesn't want to show his hand and was bluffing, just turn yours over.
Don't
It's
try and
obviously the
embarrass
best.
him.
Yeah.
The guy's here to have fun, remember, first and foremost.
You're going to see it on the stream in 20 minutes. Just turn your hand over.
Yeah.
I was begging, by the way, to get 2-7 against Christian and absolutely have his life and show it and start screaming, "I'm Sam from Redcar." Slapping myself in the chest.
That would have been class.
I would have actually done it as well. If I got 2-7 at any point in this stream, I was absolutely after him.
Yeah, I don't think I saw you have to pick it up. So.
Nah, I didn't.
But he was in a lot of pots.
He was. So if at any point he'd raised and I had 2-7, he was getting the absolute business.
The biz.
However many streets he decided to hang on for, he was getting the lot. Yeah, it didn't matter. I was after it.
It's a good sight for sore eyes, isn't it, boys?
What, your face?
Chip count.
Your chip count. Ah. Apparently me and Connor looked like we were having romantic relations with our shared bottle of red wine.
It did look very cosy.
in the English corner.
Yeah. It was cozy.
It was cozy.
I thought you were going to start like linking arms and drinking it around the side. You know?
We should have. Give the chat something to talk about.
Yeah. We had a few interesting spots. It's been another good 2-5 table, which is great because the Cash Game Festival about 3 stops from before. It was just dead,
Reg City.
Just nits, yeah. Then we get Oldroyd in there opening any suited king from any position, just absolutely giving it.
Who's just sharing wine with someone who chugs 3/4 of a glass? Questionable. I'm guessing that's me.
No, that was you.
Did you
We
do
saw
one
you.
in?
You won a big pot, and you've got this half a glass of wine, and you've just absolutely necked it whilst the camera was on you. It was one of the best moments I've ever seen.
That's very Connor Oldroyd.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, I'm a bit of one of them as well. So at least we're doing it in at the same rate.
I said you were sort of going against what the whole reason for getting the red wine, being sophisticated, you know.
Oh yeah, just absolute wagon.
Billy's your mate, right?
What?
Billy's your mate, right?
Yeah.
Proper Brexit. Mate, he's class. That might have been the only good move I've seen in the stream. Excuse me. I think you've forgotten the 10-4-3 bet.
10-4, giving it some large.
Big up the 10-4.
Flop the absolute lot as well.
I know, how do I not win both, to be honest? Absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Booze. It is the second best thing I've seen in the stream. Thank you very much. That's more like it.
So how many hands left have we got at this point? 1 or 2?
I'm off on my bike. It looks like it's finished, right?
Yeah. Connor's counting his chip stack up.
Yeah,
so
he's already.
That's an absolute lock.
He's already on his way to the bank. I'm out the room. It looks like the last hand to me. Billy, Connor is behind us, but it is me, Sam, in the booth with George. Connor's milling about, doing in some food still, I think.
Counting his money.
Oh, no, he's just counting his money. That's what's happening.
Yeah, there's a 20-minute delay, so the reason that Sam and Connor can be with us just is because, we're about 15-20 minutes behind.
Yeah.
So that people can't see the whole card information and know what everyone else has got.
Weird flex. But okay.
So Jordan, who's just sat down. Whoa, what the hell? Zoltan's just stacked off with Jack Eye.
That's what you like to see.
10 on the
and
river.
still has Jack Eye on the river. Any good? Imagine if it was good.
And ace.
Whoa! Absolute last hand magic.
Yeah. Needed a
two's good.
A 9, a jack, or an 8.
How have I missed that?
Jesus Christ!
Wow.
Zoltan in there.
Absolutely in the mix.
Gamble, and Jordan, who was bluffing with his muffin, just gets snap called and decides that he's still going to win.
Hey George, let your friends shout out their socials.
Yeah, sure thing.
So it is Sam Clark Poker on Instagram and YouTube for the vlogs. And Connor, you want to get in the mix?
The Oldroyd.
The Oldroyd.
Just not one Oldroyd, the Oldroyd.
Only
the
Oldroyd.
one and only.
Yeah. I've never heard of that surname before, actually.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, you are the only Oldroyd I know, to be fair.
Yorkshire, I think.
Alright.
My neck of the woods.
So it looks like that's going to be a wrap. And Billy said no surprise to Fat Gear.
Yeah, I'll give him that.
Yeah, fair enough. So guys, thanks very much for joining. We had a lot of fun here. We had a hell of an action table and had some good stuff going on in the PLL earlier on. Tomorrow we are going to move to the 3-stream format. And I'll just get some of the information on what's coming up. Sam, do you want to tell the guys about what you're doing on YouTube and some of the stuff there?
Yeah, just put it in the chat there. So,
Okay.
Sam Clark Poker on Instagram and YouTube. Trying to be the UK Andrew Neeme, basically, to be honest.
Yeah.
I noticed a gap in the market that there's a lot of American vloggers on the scene and there's no one in England showing how it's done. There is UK grinders, there is professional players playing in England, all over the country. Right now I'm playing in Manchester and I'm documenting that experience online on YouTube. I've been to the last 2 cash game festivals, this one and Bratislava. There is 2 videos up, I believe, from Bratislava, and there is going to be some up from this week in Bucharest as well.
Great stuff.
And basically it's just covering, what I'm up to.
Looking forward to seeing those. We'll keep you updated with that. as we move on. Tomorrow we have PLO 4522 starting at 5 local time, so 3 in the UK. Short deck, €2 ante, starting at 7:30 local time, 5:30 UK. And Texas No Limit Hold'em, another 2-5 stream. So I'm sure you'll see Connor and Sam back in the mix for that one. And that's at 10 PM local time, 8 PM UK. Thanks very much for joining us here at the Cash Game Festival. It's been a pleasure. Signing out on day 2. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Make sure if you haven't been yet to Cash Game Festival, you have to come.